What if I told you that one of the biggest new Can Yaman headlines in Spain is not about a trailer, not about a premiere, and not even about a casting update, but about his body, his image, and the way he chose to answer criticism publicly? In this video, we're breaking down why Spanish media is suddenly talking about Can Yaman again, what exactly happened, what he said, and why this story is actually bigger than it looks at first. And if you enjoy clean updates about Can and Turkish stars going global, make sure you subscribe. So here's the situation. Spanish media has picked up a new Can Yaman story after he responded on social media to criticism about his physical appearance. On the surface, this sounds like a classic celebrity magazine moment. A famous actor posts something, the media reacts, and a quick headline is born. But when you look a little deeper, this is actually about image, pressure, masculinity, and public perception, especially now that Can is becoming even more visible in Spain. And that's why I think this story matters. Because this is not just about whether somebody likes his look or doesn't like his look. This is about what happens when an actor becomes such a visible figure that even his body becomes a constant topic of discussion. According to the reports, Can responded to people making comments about his physique, and his message was blunt, emotional, and clearly frustrated. He pushed back against the idea that his appearance comes from luck, privilege, or artificial shortcuts, and he framed many of those comments as the kind of negativity coming from insecure and jealous men. Now, whether people agree with the tone of his response or not, one thing is very clear. He did not stay silent. And honestly, that is one reason this got attention so fast. Because silence is usually the safer path. Most stars either ignore criticism completely or answer it in a polished PR way. But Can's style has never really been cold, distant, or robotic. When he feels something, it often shows. And that emotional directness is one of the reasons he gets so much engagement in the first place. Some people love that honesty because it feels real. Others think it gives too much oxygen to critics. But either way, it creates headlines. And that brings us to the bigger question. Why is Spanish media paying attention to this now? The answer is timing. Can is not just another foreign actor passing through. He is in a phase where his visibility in Spain matters more than ever. He has been building momentum there, appearing more often in Spanish media, working in the country, and increasing his presence in a market that could become very important for the next stage of his international career. So when a figure like Can is already under the spotlight, even a social media reaction becomes news material. That is what we are seeing here. This is not only a story about criticism. It is also a story about relevance. Because media usually does not amplify people they consider irrelevant. They amplify people who generate clicks, reactions, debate, and emotional investment. And Can still does that. Very clearly. Another interesting part of this story is the way male celebrity bodies are discussed online. Let's be honest. People talk a lot about body shaming when it happens to women in entertainment, and rightly so. But when it happens to men, it is often normalized, turned into jokes, or treated like it is not serious. If a male actor gets bigger, leaner, more muscular, less defined, too thin, too bulky, too polished, too rough, people suddenly think it is open season for commentary. And with Can, this gets even more intense because his public image has always been tied to charisma, presence, attractiveness, and a very strong physical aura on screen. So when someone like that changes physically, or even just posts a photo that makes people react, the discussion explodes fast. Some will praise him. Some will question him. Some will compare him to older versions of himself. And some will act like they are just being honest, when really they are feeding the exact kind of toxic cycle celebrities deal with every day. That is why I think Can's response, even if sharp, came from accumulated frustration. Because it probably isn't about one comment. It is about the pattern, the constant analyzing, the constant judging, the constant assumption that public people should quietly accept every insult thrown at them. And that is where this story becomes relatable even beyond fandom. A lot of people understand that feeling. Maybe not at celebrity level, but in normal life too. When people reduce your discipline, your effort, your body, or your transformation to luck, money, or some lazy explanation, it can feel insulting. Especially if you know how much work actually went into it. That seems to be the emotional core of Can's reaction. Not just, "Don't criticize me," but more like, "Don't erase the effort behind what you see." Now, from a media perspective, was this useful for him? That's the really interesting part. Because in pure PR terms, controversy can cut both ways. On one side, some people may say this kind of reaction is unnecessary, that stars should stay above the noise, that answering critics makes the criticism bigger. And yes, there is truth in that argument. But on the other side, this kind of story keeps John in the conversation. And visibility matters. Especially in a market where audience curiosity, media repetition, and personal brand recognition can all help future projects. So even if the headline looks negative at first glance, the overall result may still be more attention, more searches, more discussion, and more awareness of who Can Yaman is right now in Spain. In other words, this may be one of those moments that is messy on the surface but useful underneath. Because the headline is not saying he disappeared. It is not saying nobody cares. It is saying he exploded into the conversation again. And for public figures, being in the conversation is often half the battle. There is also something else happening here. This story reinforces the idea that John is not being covered in Spain like a distant imported celebrity. He is being covered like a local pop culture figure who can generate day-to-day media attention. That matters a lot. It means he is entering the rhythm of Spanish entertainment coverage in a more natural and regular way. That may not sound huge at first, but actually it is. Because real market presence is not only built through giant premieres and official announcements. It is also built through repeated visibility, recognition, familiarity, and the sense that the audience keeps encountering your name again and again. This is how public figures become embedded in a media ecosystem. And John seems to be doing exactly that. Now, do I think this specific story alone is some massive career-defining turning point? Well, let's keep it real. This is not the kind of headline that changes everything overnight. It is not a blockbuster announcement. It is not a confirmed new hit. It is not a major award story. But it is a very telling little moment. It tells us that John is still highly clickable. It tells us that his image still sparks reactions. It tells us that Spanish outlets think his personal responses are worth covering. And it tells us that his presence in Spain is active enough for even smaller social media-driven stories to get traction. That is the key takeaway for me. So the real story is not just, John claps back at critics. The real story is this. Can Yaman remains a visible, emotionally engaging, debate-generating public figure in Spain, and even a social media response is enough to put him back into entertainment headlines. That is not nothing. That is a signal. Maybe not the biggest signal in the world, but definitely a signal. And moving forward, that means every new appearance, every project update, every interview, and every media reaction could matter even more because the attention infrastructure is already there. So yes, this started as a body criticism headline. But underneath it, this is really a story about celebrity pressure, public image, and the fact that John still knows how to dominate attention without even needing a trailer drop to do it. And that is exactly why people are talking. Let me know what you think about this whole situation. And if you want more clean and honest updates on Can Yaman and the latest Turkish star news, subscribe and stay with me for the next one.